What's up guys, Josh here, and today we're going to be talking about the Vanatoo Transparent 1 Encores. Now, these are the new speakers coming out of Vanatoo. There's a claim down at the bottom, which I normally refrain from using, which says that these are the best speakers under $1,000. Now, usually I refrain from making claims like that because I believe with substantial claims, you need substantial evidence. And while the sound portion of this is going to be completely personal from person to person, I do think that the sound, but more specifically the build and the feature set, make this a very valuable consideration for the best under $1,000. This is just my personal opinion. So regarding that feature set, what is available? I'm going to have to read this off of a phone because I can't remember it all. There's a 100-watt amplifier per aluminum woofer, which they use 5 1/4. They also have a passive radiator on the back. Very, very cool technology. They use it on their transparent one, the regulars, their originals, and the transparent zeros. And they also have a 20-watt amplifier per tweeter, which is an aluminum dome tweeter. Now, there's a couple features here you'll see pretty commonly in active speakers like this, like the bass and treble and volume adjustments on the back, and you can also control it with a little remote. But then there are some things that are specific to this unit, and more importantly, how they operate and all the variabilities within them. So you have a 3.5mm in, USB in, optical input, coaxial input, and Bluetooth inputs. Now, a very important part of this is that all these inputs can be hooked up all at the same time, and they will all automatically switch, or you can manually override it with the aforementioned remote, but they will all automatically switch depending on the input signal. So if you have your TV playing into the optical input, for example, and then you hook up your phone with the Bluetooth and you start playing out of your phone, it'll switch to your phone. Now, there is an additional USB port that's called a service port, which you can do software updates and things of that nature, but it can also double as a phone or tablet charger, which is pretty neat. There is a passive and an active side, but you can select which side is right and which side is left. There's a line level subwoofer output. There's automatic sleep and wake. Again, you can turn this off, as well as the LED light and a couple other settings in the menus. And then on top of this, there's also different DSP settings, like you can go from stereo to mono, and you can also put it in a shelved mode. There's more. If you want to check it out, just go to the website and go look at their user manual. But at the end of the day, this is a speaker, so its main job before all the cool and fancy features is to produce sound. And if it's not any good at that, then those features are relatively useless. There's a few key features, some things that it's not so good at, and some things that it's really, really good at. And we're gonna go ahead and jump between all of them. But in general, if you're using it for the right purpose, I think it's amazing. It's not really a studio monitor. I wouldn't really use it for that. But if you're using it for like just general desktop use, or small room, medium room, like enjoyable music listening or movie watching or gaming, it's spectacular for those, as long as you're not mastering and you don't need the absolute most accurate speakers in the world and you just want something fun and enjoyable to listen to. This is definitely going to be your cup of tea. So to start off, let's go ahead and talk about the treble. Now, it's not as tight and as crisp as something like the Airmotive V1s, which I have on my desk right now, where you're getting these really, really finite details. And this can be a good thing or a bad thing. I would call the performance of the treble on the Encore to be very clean and pleasing and enjoyable to listen to, especially at loud volumes, which this does very, very well. They're a very capable little speaker. It's no joke what these can do. Not super clinical, but still detailed enough to have a decent amount of resolution in the top end. But I don't want it to sound like they're under detailed. They never left me feeling lacking. Just A/B comparing them to something with a lot of top end detail, it was a noticeable dip, but still, again, very, very pleasing. So if you're going at this from the right perspective, you're gonna be very, very happy. Now, mid-range, I actually have to couple in with the imaging and the soundstage, and I'll explain why. So instruments, of course, have great body, great depth to them. You know, I have absolutely no complaints when it comes to instrumental mid-range. Now, when it comes to vocal mid-range, vocals are different. Now, the reason why they're different is because I was coming from, especially in the room that the Vanatoos are now in, I was using a pair of KEF Q100s. Now, the KEFs are a very mid-range centric speaker, I would call them. And vocals are absolutely beautiful from a frequency perspective. They have a little bit of a raise in the vocal presentation areas. It makes the singer kind of come forward and adds this great separation. Now, these are a little bit different. They don't quite have that frequency boost in them. But the reason why I bring up the imaging and the soundstage is because these have such a holographic sound to them. Like it's almost see-through. It's very impressive, and I'll talk more about it in a second. But what they lack in a vocal frequency boost, they make up for in just this incredible sound staging depth and separation between the background music and the singer. I think of any speaker that I've tried, passive or active, this probably has to be the best for that separation that I've heard and actually reviewed in my personal life. You know, I heard a couple high value, like thousands and thousands of dollar systems at RMAF that sounded a little bit better, but under $1,000 in my own home, in my personal life, this has to be the best vocal separation I've heard, period. Now, bass response. Oh, those passive radiators are doing work, man. The way I would describe the bass response is shocking. I owned a pair of monoprice K-Bosses, which are pretty bassy, notoriously bassy actually. And these have cleaner but deeper bass than those do. And they develop in a room in a much more substantial way. And on top of that, they have far superior imaging, far superior soundstage, a lot better highs, and are easier and a lot better looking than those K-Bosses are. This is so far, of the speakers that I've reviewed, the only speaker that I don't actively recommend a subwoofer for. If you're in a large room or you want to hit like 20 hertz or something like that, yeah, definitely get a subwoofer. But if you're a bass head for these, you don't need it. When you adjust the bass dial, the boost in the bass response generally tends to happen from about 70 to about 125 hertz from ear, from what I'm hearing. I don't know exactly if that's the range, but that's about where it sounds. So it's not getting any lower in terms of frequency. I was hitting probably about, I don't know, 40 to 45 hertz was really where this is capping out, and then below there wasn't much, but I haven't met a speaker that can hit 20 hertz out of the box yet, at least. But that 70 hertz to 120 hertz, it definitely gets a big boost. And if you're set up in the wrong position in your room, it can sound quite boomy and a little bit boxy, but if you have it in the right position where they're far enough away from the wall and you're in a large enough space, it actually adds a good amount of mid bass without that boomy or boxy or bloated bass response sound. I don't really recommend this unless you're making up for the size of the room. I really like the stock settings that there are, maybe a little bit of tweaking in the treble, you know, maybe a little bit of a boost in the bass response if you want a little bit more kick, but I really like the stock settings and the way they're set up. Okay, so imaging and soundstage. There's not really much to say, and there's not really a word to describe it other than perhaps something that I've said before, which is a holographic sound. The depth to the soundstage is impressive, to say the least. So something I want to start introducing in the upcoming, and this one included, but the upcoming speaker reviews, is talking about the use case and where I recommend using them. And I'm going to consider 3 different areas: a desk, a small room like a bedroom, something like this, and then like a medium room. And I only can recommend those 3 because I don't have a large room to test in, unfortunately. On a desk, they are good, but the sound doesn't quite really feel filled out until they're working at higher volumes, volumes that I wasn't really too excited to be playing at a desk because I just felt like they were a little bit too loud to what I like. So for a desk, I still think they make the best desktop speakers, but I think the best desktop speakers are the transparent Zeros, which are their small little trapezoidal shaped speakers. Those things are amazing, perfect setup for a desk straight out of the box. They're the best. But in a small room like this, you really start to see that bass develop, and you are starting to really see the capability. You can also spread them wide enough to where you're really benefiting from the really impressive imaging and soundstage capability. Although with these, I wouldn't recommend going past about 9 feet. I think that's where I really felt like the imaging and the soundstage was kind of starting to dip a little bit in quality, but 9 feet inwards, I think you're going to be golden. So while the T0Es are amazing on a desk and amazing in a small room, where I think their true ability lies, their pure capability, the best that they can perform, is in a room like this, a medium size room. And I'll put the measurements of this room up just for a little bit of reference. And because rooms like this have an opening over there, there's an opening to the kitchen over here, and there's a fireplace right over here. And all those things add to the sound acoustics of the room. And certain speakers fall apart with these sorts of characteristic changes, and other speakers like the T0E really tend to maintain their integrity despite the changing circumstances. And that is one of the more impressive parts about the T0E. And if you think about what the options are in a room like this, I mean, you could get a set of nice speakers, but then you have to find a 100-watt amplifier that has all the capabilities, and the price starts to stack up quick. For a closed, ready-to-go system with the versatility and the capability, and more importantly, the sound quality that comes with this device, like, it doesn't really get much better. But that's enough for this room, so we're gonna go ahead and get into the conclusion. Also, before we do that, bonus points for anybody who can name this movie that's playing right over here. It actually got nominated and won a number of awards for the sound design and the editing of this movie, so I highly recommend checking it out. So my conclusion. So as an overall simple, out-of-the-box package, these are killer. So they get a 10 out of 10 recommendation from me. They are pricey, but they're so worth it. All right, guys, thanks very much for watching. A special thank you to the patrons who help continue to make this channel possible. If you want early access to videos exactly like this one, there's a link in the description down below. Until the next video, my name's Josh, signing off.